Thank you. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. My name is Gabriella Heyer. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the H.O.S.T Program Development Director. Welcome to Together's Host Home Program virtual launch. Thank you for taking the time this evening to dream, learn, and grow with us. I recognize many of the faces in this room, and I can't express just how excited I am to see you. But I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge Representative Jessica Bateman and County Commissioner Mejia, who are present here this evening. This evening, we will hear from Megan Darrow, our Executive Director of Together, and Kim Reinhart, Executive Director of Mason County H.O.S.T Program. Kim is also the lead consultant on our Host Homes Program Development team. We will also hear from Landon Trout-Fermo and Mitchell Manthe, who will share their experience as participants of the Mason Host Home program. This evening is about inspiring our community to mobilize and take action. We're all here because we care about the health and well-being of our young people, and more specifically, because we want to address the needs of unaccompanied high school students in Thurston County. There is no one-size-fits-all solutions or answers to addressing or even eradicating homelessness. But together as a community, we can rally around our unaccompanied high school students. Just a little bit about the Host Homes program. Kim will be sharing more in depth. Host Homes is an innovative, short-term, community-based housing intervention for youth experiencing homelessness. The Host Homes model is a highly successful approach to addressing and achieving outcomes when working with homeless youth. The model itself can be replicated, and it has been across the state of Washington and beyond, with each community uniquely implementing the Host Homes program to address the needs of their youth. I also would like to take a moment to recognize our community partners, because without them, quite frankly, this journey would be a lot harder. I would like to recognize Community Foundation of South Puget Sound, City of Tumwater, Mason County H.O.S.T, our Homeless Prevention and Affordable Housing Coordinator with Thurston County Public Health, Community Youth Services, Family Education and Support Services, North Thurston School District, North Thurston Education Foundation, Lacey Rotary Club, Tumwater District, the Tumwater School District, Tumwater Hopes, Pizza Clutch, Pipe Olympia, and the list goes on. It keeps growing, and that's very humbling, to be honest with you. Now, at this time, I would like to invite Megan Darrow to speak. I'm going to share.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm Megan Darrow, Executive Director of Together. I use she, her pronouns. Gabby asked me to speak a little bit about Together and how Together has come about taking on becoming the backbone for a Host Homes program in Thurston County. So I've been with Together for about 10 years, proudly, and we've evolved a lot in the 10 years I've been with Together. Together is a nonprofit organization within Thurston County, and we have a 32-year history intervening in youth and family issues in our community. Together's mission is to advance the health and well-being of all young people, and our work has evolved to center equity, mobilization, and systems change. We live our values through two main programs, and of course, the one we're launching tonight, which you'll get to hear about. First is our Clubhouse program, which is an out-of-school time program in North Thurston Public Schools. I see North Thurston Public Schools represented tonight. Hi, everyone. We also have a program strategy called Community Schools, and we currently partner in the Tumwater and Yelm school districts. And that places community schools managers that do case management and resource referral and connection for students and families in a school setting. All three of the models, and the last one, of course, Host Homes, which you'll hear more about tonight, are based in research and best practices with trauma-informed care and restorative practices at their center. Gabby also asked me to talk a little bit about the evolution of Together launching Host Homes. So it's a really interesting story because Together was hesitant at first. However, we're so excited to have evolved into being the backbone organization. But about 3 years ago, Together and the city of Tumwater School District, and some other partners, including Tumwater Hopes, were exploring unmet needs in the Tumwater community. One coming to the surface being the lack of housing stability for a handful of high school students in the Tumwater high schools. And then about a year ago, we spoke with Kim from Mason County H.O.S.T, exploring that model as a possible intervention in Tumwater. You're going to hear a lot about her journey with Mason County H.O.S.T and how Together will implement it. But at that time, it was the beginning of the pandemic, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And we were kind of looking for a way to push this vision forward. And Together started to explore with our board and then agreed to become the backbone organization. And then the Community Foundation stepped in after hearing some about our vision, took interest in it, and funded a project planning process, which is what we're in right now for the Host Homes model in Tumwater. And then at the same time, we had some synergy over in Lacey, where partners were talking about the same issues we were talking about in Tumwater for unaccompanied high school youth. The North Thurston Education Foundation, Lacey Rotary, and North Thurston Public Schools were having similar conversations and meeting with Kim. And then we all came together like early this year and decided to join forces and do a pilot this year with North Thurston Public Schools and Tumwater as the first two pilot school district partners. We're so excited to have Kim on our team as our regional host home expert. And of course, the existing youth housing partners like Community Youth Services and the many other youth and housing experts here in our county, pushing and putting wins in our sails. So Together hopes to create a sustainable youth choice-centered temporary housing model to intervene in the cycle of homelessness in Thurston County. And like we said, we are just starting with Tumwater and Lacey. And with that, I'm excited to hand it off to Kim, who will tell us more about the host home models around the state and in Mason County, their structure and function, and what to expect from Together in the coming year. And in addition, which I'm so excited to hear from our young adult presenters who have been a part of the host homes model. So take it away, Kim.
Thank you all for having me. I am going to go right into just a little bit about me. I'm currently the executive director of the Mason County H.O.S.T program, and I have been there for almost 9 years. I'm also the co-executive director of the Washington State Host Home Coalition. And basically what that means is that we audit, sort of manage and track all the host home projects that are either in development or already reporting to the state of Washington. And that's been in existence for about 2 years. There were enough folks that were cleaving to the concept of a host home community that we figured that we needed to sort of make some moves to make sure that we were securing them and organizing together and supporting one another. So those are kind of my two main roles right now. So the history, I'm going to go back to the history of the Mason County H.O.S.T program. It was created by Rotary is always around these products, and Rotary was around this project as well as the Community Foundation and the Gates Foundation were sort of the genesis of the Mason County H.O.S.T program financially. And so when I got there, it was the theme was the same as the project that's being started now. it was just sort of securing it, making sure that there were no nonprofit issues, and then developing what the community needed, taking stock of that. So, the current project with Together is following in a lot of ways the same trajectory that we did, probably with a lot less bumps, because there's all these amazing women that are organizing this and directing this, and Michael, and everyone's bringing this together as an organized project. So I'm jealous in a way, because my beginnings were not quite as beautiful as y'all's on this project. We serve students ages currently 15 to 21. Initially, we were only serving 18 to 21 because the cost goes up in serving younger age youth. And so at that point, we didn't have the financial support to do that, but now we do. The tenets of the program are the same. When youth can decide where they want to be and are resourced, they go about their lives and their autonomy in the way that they're supposed to. And so the basic tenets of that, at least in Mason County, are education, stable housing, following a case management plan, and then some serious self-actualization and a goal-related plan. To date, we have 100% graduation from our program, and we have not lost a single student in returning to homelessness. So that's a big statement. That statement says that when there's the right interventions, that there's some fixes that can be pretty big. And in addition, about 84% of all of our students have gone on to college. The rest are working and work while they're going to school. And it's because it's a very hands-on approach to lives. So there's the issue of housing, but if you address all the other issues via case management, that impacts how successful permanent housing can be. So that's kind of the genesis of that program. And I think the Washington Host Home Coalition adds a certain dimension to it as well, because it is supporting all the programs around the state of Washington. There are 8 that are our current programs and another 5 that are in development. And some of the things that we're doing in that project is creating a database around successful outcomes for host graduates, to use that data for the entire coalition to fundraise, to create legislation, to shore up host homes in Washington state, and in general, create sort of a powerful movement for our host home project. Around the country, I've participated in launching a host home project for sex trafficked kids students in Virginia. And we participated in launching another project that was in the state of Minnesota as well. That was not for sex trafficked students, but for other students. There's a project coming up in Pierce County for disabled students, and behind that is the hosting concept as well. So folks are taking the concept of hosting and sort of navigating it to whatever community that they're trying to serve, and using that model to affect graduation rates and houselessness. So where we're at now is that this is a product that is cheaper than foster care in many ways, that gives much more agency to youth, eliminates some of the, frequently nonprofits and hosting projects are almost the red-headed stepchildren that are directly related to foster care. And so what we've tried to do is completely change that reflection and say that nonprofits are legitimately probably at a higher level getting successful outcomes than systemic-based outcomes. And so I've been fighting that for a while, because the facts are the facts. Hosting projects do not have students in general returning to homelessness. They provide a certain level of care and nurture that a traditional system does not. And so I want to look at my time. Okay, 6:20. Thank you. Sorry, I had to check myself. And then as far as Together goes, Together is sort of has a smaller game plan and then a much larger game plan countywide to try to really impart a host project in a way that's going to impact youth in large S all over the county. And it's a really good game plan that they have. They've done their homework. I love the fact that they're partnering with the Tumwater School District, because the state currently is very intentfully looking at private-public partnerships to make sure that that it ensures good stewards of the financing available and encourages private foundations like the Community Foundation or the Satterberg Foundation or Group Health Foundation that are looking at youth helplessness as a public health issue. So those words are getting sort of spoken about and actualized, that acknowledge that this actually is a health issue. It's not just a housing issue. And I think Gabby and everyone involved in this project is trying to embrace the fact that that's sort of the genesis of how you break these cycles, is that you acknowledge that this is a whole human issue. And so then you have to approach youth in a whole human way to mitigate, and hopefully we get to net zero on this issue at some point if we offer more fixes than just foster care. Just foster care is not an answer to this problem. Foster care is overburdened. Currently in most of the CPS offices around the counties surrounding Thurston County, they are housing children in their offices, in interview rooms, and in closets, because there's no place for youth that become homeless. And if you don't fit into the foster care system, or you run, or you decide that a systemic fix is not for you, then there's only being pulled in, being put in a home where you don't feel that you have a choice in it. It's just, foster care cannot be the only systemic fix. So we approached the legislature about 5 years ago to draft some legislation to support hosting, and that was received well on both sides of the aisle and in Children's Services at the time. In fact, they assisted us in getting it done very quickly. And now hosting can be provided for infants all the way through, I think it's age 24. And so that's another important piece of legitimizing the idea of hosting youth to eliminate this issue. So what I would say is that the outcomes are the outcomes. So at the Mason County H.O.S.T program, I'll just speak to that, just so that it can be sort of a final exclamation point. So we have 8 years of data, and in 8 years, we've had 100% graduation rate. No one's returned to houselessness. We've had 4 students from my program return to Mason County and purchase homes in the county and are contributing to the tax base as well there. We have crazy outcomes as far as graduating from college, and students that were involved in the justice system, breaking free of that and self-determining. And so, for me, this is an inexpensive, loving alternative to the foster care system that gives youth agency and a right to plan out who they are, who they want to be, just like I had, probably just like Gabby had at some point. Not that it's perfect for any of us, but the genesis of it should always be that youth know what they want, and we're either listening or we're not. And so when you combine that with an idea that gives them a right to choose a home in a community where they're nurtured, you get to watch that garden grow, which means that there's less systemic impact. That in my program, students in my program also have to be volunteering in the community. So then students are understanding the concept of receiving resources and giving back to the community in exchange. There's not much about this that's not a good idea. And so, we have, so I have 8 years of data in my program. Ryan's House for Youth had 5 years of data with similar outcomes, almost the exact same outcomes at that program. There are several programs in urban areas in Seattle that are running. The numbers are not quite that high, but they're in the 70-80% graduation percentile and with successful outcomes. So at this point, not only the legislature, but the feds are looking to finance these projects and are looking at them as really good alternatives to foster care. So I'm going to stop right there and introduce the fine young gentleman who came here to talk about this tonight. The first person who's going to speak, his name is Mitchell Manthe. He graduated from my program, and like many of the graduates, have chosen to extend an offer of extended family to me and many other community members to support them. And Mitchell, I will let him tell his story because it's an amazing one, and he is a beautiful human. And Landon is a current part of my the Mason County H.O.S.T program. Will be great. We got to get. He just did his graduation presentation, and he will be graduating this year. And Landon has an amazing story as well. His name is Landon Trout Fairmo. So without further ado, we'll start with Mitchell, and I'll turn it over to him.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mitchell Manthe. I'm 25 years old, and excuse my vulgarity in my story. It's quite the vulgar story, so I know I'm not I'm in a more professional sense here, so I'm gonna try to keep it as professional as I can. To give you a little bit of a backstory on myself, my childhood growing up was just a rough one. Not gonna get into too much detail about that one. I got kicked out from my family when I was 15 years old. At that point in time, I didn't really know much about the world. A lot of my life had been very, very sheltered. So when I got pushed out into the world, I went searching for whatever I could to figure out how to survive at that point. I found drugs and partying to be my main source of staying alive at that time. I started out just going from friend to friend's house, staying at anybody's house that would just let me live there for a little bit. And then it got to the point to where I had to couch hop every night. It was, let's see, I was probably 17, maybe 16 when I started selling drugs. I was selling everything from ecstasy, cocaine, all the way up to the hard stuff. And it took me down quite a dark road. I was on a path towards destruction for a long time. I thought that was what my life was going to always be. I never I remember there was one night that I genuinely sat there and I said, "Wow, this is it. This is as good as it gets for me," because this is the cards I've been dealt. And so I kind of accepted my fate, and I got harder into it. I started gangbanging, and just things got really, really bad there for a while. Right when I turned 18, I caught my first 2 felony charges. It was an assault 3 and a possession with intent to deliver. I had gotten into a pretty big altercation and had a bunch of drugs on me when they caught me. Got lucky that it was my first charge, and they let me out after 2 months. I definitely did not learn my lesson in 2 months, and got out, and I got on even harder stuff. I started doing methamphetamine, and I was selling that, and I was selling everything else under the sun as much as I could. Still in the same survival tactics as I was before, and which led me to my second case of 2 more felony charges. I got a felony attempting to elude a police officer and assault 3 on a police officer. I got into a high-speed chase while high on meth, cocaine, drunk, under about every substance I could possibly get my hands on that night. That night I was pretty well done with life. I had kind of decided that, if this was going to be my life, I didn't want to do it anymore. And so when I got into the high-speed chase and the cops caught me and took me into jail, I had no idea what turn life was going to take at that time. While I was in jail, I made the decision that, basically I wanted to at least try to do something different with my life. And so I decided to check myself into rehab. Luckily, I got placed into into a rehab in Mason County. And about a month and a half when I entered into the rehab, I told them, at this point I was 20 going on 21. and I knew that I had very, very little time to finish my high school diploma. I had dropped out the day before my 12th grade started. Just decided I didn't want to finish it, and at this point in time, I was like, I went through 11 years of it. I can make it one more year. So I went to Choice. I found Choice Alternative School in Shelton, Washington, and the very first day, I'll never forget this. Very first day, they give us a tour, through the school and kind of just showing us around. And they took us into the office area, which is they have the main office and then a long hallway. And along the long hallway, they have doors on each side. And as we were walking down, we walked past Kim's room, and right out, she started explaining to us what the host program is and kind of what they do. And I had no idea, like, that day, like the huge impact that the host program and Kim herself was going to have on me. At that point in time, the rehab that I was at, I had decided about another month and a half in, that I was ready to move on to the next step and move into a Oxford house, which is, for those who don't know, is clean and sober housing. And Kim jumped hoops for me to make it happen. She helped me cover the moving in costs with the host program, and she helped me with the application process into there. She helped me transferring from the actual rehab into that housing. She helped me with my family, who was on my butt about leaving rehab, and she supported me and she backed me up. She was one of the few who did. And she helped me get a job. She helped me get my license back, helped me pay for my license and my insurance, which was an insane amount of money because I owe a lot of money in tickets. And she pushed me. She pushed me to graduate every single day, even when there was days where I was like, this is too much. I can't do this. I'm 20 years old. What am I doing? Why am I back in high school around a bunch of 15, 16, 17-year-olds? Like, this is, and she held it down. She made sure that I got through it. I remember there was one day where I was really, really ready to give up. And she asked me, she was like, what's one thing that you wish you hadn't have gotten rid of when you were on drugs? And I told her my acoustic guitar. And she told me, she said, I have an acoustic guitar and I will give it to you if you graduate. And it was about 2 weeks before, like, it was like crunch time, ready for the, like, if you either finish your stuff that you need to get done now, or you're not going to graduate. And I was teetering on the verge. I was very teetering. And she brought the guitar to the school. She handed it to me and she said, I'm going to give you this now. And if you don't graduate, I'm taking it back. If you do graduate, you get to keep it. And I still have that guitar. It's hanging on my wall in my bedroom right now. And it's actually going to get transferred into this room here. This is my office in here. But yeah, I was able to make it through it. And to this day, that's probably one of my biggest accomplishments was going back and making it through that. And it's insane to me how much, even still to this day, I mean, my mom and we don't have the best relationship. We don't really have a relationship at all at this point. And luckily, I have someone as amazing as Kim to this day. I call her mama for a reason, because she is my mama. That she calls me her son. I call her my mama anytime I'm telling her, anybody about her. I'm like, that's my mama, because she is. She is family to me. She's changed my life. Sorry. I do not know where I would be to this day if it hadn't been for Kim and the host program. I definitely would not be living in a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in a very nice community with a mindset that I do have a future and I do have the ability to be different than who I used to be better than who I used to be. And without Kim in the host program, there's no way I'd be at this point. There's no way in hell it wouldn't be possible. There's no way I could have done this on my own without them. I mean, just I call her probably about once a week just to kind of check up, let her know what's going on. And still to this day, she supports me more than anybody in my entire life. And so to me, it wasn't just about, the money that helped me move into these, and the money that helped me pay rent sometimes when I couldn't cover rent and I was stressed out because my minimum wage part-time job wasn't able to cover it. But here comes mama with, the host program coming in to save my ass again. And so I'm lucky and I'm blessed that I got placed in Shelton, Washington, in that area, in that school, in that host program, and met Kim, because I'd probably be strung out on drugs still. I'd probably be dead right now, to be honest with you, if I'm being real. So that's my story about Kim and how the host program has absolutely changed my life in 180 degrees and has saved my life, to be honest with you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mitchell. Thank you, buddy. And now I'm going to turn it over to Landon Trout Fairmo.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Landon. As you can see right now, I am homeless. And Kim in the host program, she jumped on the case like right away, the second that she heard. Like, I tried to make myself the life of the school, everything about me, and everything was fine. I was living in a house with my mom a couple years ago, and everything was going great. And my mom, I don't know what got into her. She had, I'm the youngest out of 4 boys in total. And my mom got tired after, the third boy moved out. And then I just kind of felt like, a backwash. Well, she ended up moving over to Idaho, and I was left over here with my grandparents up in the tent. Well, we're up on the Christmas tree farm, and Kim to this day is still trying to do everything. We're working together, and it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, especially after that story that I just heard. That was crazy and it was beautiful. I'm still kind of new to the host program and everything, but all I can say right now is that it's only led to a good positive growth for me.
Thank you, Landon.
Yeah.
Okay, Gabby.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your stories, and for inspiring us to keep moving forward in this journey. Very appreciated. It's a gift. Thank you. At this time, I know that we have some time. Kim, would you be able or willing to answer some questions from our guests? I know that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Let's see the chat room. I don't see any questions in the chat room.
Oh, it looks like they're piling them in there now.
Well, and just in case anybody is not able to read the chat, I just want to share that there are a lot of heartfelt words of appreciation for Mitch, Kim, and Landon for sharing your stories and your journeys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
It looks like Kyle Taylor Lucas has a question, a raised hand.
Hi. Yeah, just Hensla, hello, and thanking Kim. Oh my gosh, lifting my hands. How I wish that I had a Kim when I aged out of foster care and had to live in vans and trucks with friends. For that following year, because there were no plans for me. We turned 17, going on 18, we get dumped on the curb in front of a strange place that's in a strange city coming from a small town, and you're supposed to be back home, and it definitely wasn't home. It's, roach infested filled with all these drunk men. That was very scary. So I did. I had to leave. I couldn't stay there. It was too frightening. So my heart just really goes to these young ones. And Mitch, for that sharing your story. I was glad I wasn't on camera. So I just, both of you are just so incredibly courageous, so brave, and lifting my hands as an Indigenous woman to you for your courage and for the very exciting path that you're on. I just wanted to share with Kim and you all that this is so heartening to me, because as a former Tumwater City Council member who, like, almost a decade ago was, trying to recruit my fellow council members, seatmates, into addressing homelessness, especially for children, 40,000 homeless children in Washington State. And it just wasn't the priority. And so here we are now, I think at 45,000, 46,000 this many years later. And so I just want to share with you a little bit about my group. We are Urban Indians Northwest, and we are disproportionately represented among those kids in the foster system and in the juvenile justice system, where our kids then graduate to the adult penal system. So what H.O.S.T is doing, and all of these fabulous organizations who are joining together in this incredible effort, really lifts my heart. And we actually are trying to as well look at programs and things that we can do as Urban Indians Northwest to try to address this. In fact, I had just posted an imprint story on social media about a week ago, talking about my story, and this story was just very timely, and you would not believe the response I received from all these folks who, like me, we go along through life looking as though we're very well, but people not understanding just the history and all of the trauma that we carry forward. And I received such a response from folks who said, that's what they needed. That I was a ward of the state, and I too got dumped when I was 17 years old. And so I just wanted to offer my support, lend our support to the work that's being done. And I won't go on here too long, but I have plenty to say, and I would love to stay in touch with you all. And again, lifting my hands to this amazing work. And I'm so glad I wasn't on screen bawling my head off during Mitch's story. So thank you. Tigwitsi.
Thank you, Kyle. I see there's questions. The first one, how do you host? It's from Sarah Rich. How do you host household volunteers?
And Sarah, by that, do you mean how does a household become a host, or how do you get volunteers for a hosting program? Could you?
How does a household volunteer to host unaccompanied youth?
That might be a good question for you, Gabby.
Yes. Well, we are currently working through that aspect of our program development, but at some point you'll be able to contact me directly, if not someone on our team together, and we'd be able to provide the education, next steps, education, application, and so on. It is a process. There will be training, interviews, home inspection / visit, and eventually meeting with the young person, the student, possibly 2 times. Then there would be a contract between the host community member and the guest. And so it is a process. It hasn't been quite ironed out yet, but if you stay in touch, we are more than willing and happy to continue to inform. And that is information that once it's been determined will be shared on the website, will be shared with the schools, e-shares. It's going to be disseminated. We want our community to get involved where they can and in however way they can. Thank you for that question, Sarah.
Yeah, it's really inspirational. Thank you so much for doing the work and let me know how I can support it.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to just add one thing, Gabby, if I could. It's really important that everyone know that there's going to be a vetting of all participants on all sides, whether it's, youth or families that are hosting. That looks very similar. It was designed and it looks very similar to the same process that goes on with the state. In foster care, it's just not quite as monotonous and it's a little more community friendly. And really encourages people a little more expediently to participate in hosting youth.
Thank you for sharing that, Kim. There's a question here for you from Vanessa Malapoti. How is outreach done in Mason County?
How outreach is done in a variety of ways. So I'm just gonna say what I think right now. I think that outreach as far as youth goes has not ever been done well in Mason County. How I have obviously there's the pit counts, the point in time count, but the way the point in time count is executed to actually get youth to participate is not very well. So when we're counting, I don't think that there's only a couple places that I would say the counting is done well that actually fits in the way that youth need it to be done in a way to actually count youth. And so that has not happened in Mason County. What I have done is I've had teams of people go into the places I know where youth are in and around the pit count, and then working with McKinney-Vento folks to kind of arrive at a number that's a little more accurate. So what we did is train teams of folks to go find youth and count them, and had our own count. Well, several years, the total count in Mason County was like 11 under the pit count. So we had people in positions, in political positions, reporting that we only had 11 homeless youth in Mason County. So myself and the McKinney-Vento folks kind of blew that whole notion up, and just to make sure that we understood that we weren't counting youth properly. So the answer to that is I don't know that they're counting youth properly anywhere, including Mason County. And it continues to be an issue. It's one of those things that I don't love a lot about systems. It is something that we use right now to count youth, but it's not great. So outreach is done in areas rurally, in Belfair, in Shelton, in roving teams to actually count and then try to get youth who are not receiving case management services appropriately out to somebody who can help them.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
Let's see. How do we integrate this into Lacey and Tumwater? The question comes from Kaoki.
I think what Together is doing right now is working to integrate it across county-wide at some point, but starting with these school districts in those particular catchment areas. And then, this is a concept that can't help but just spread out to the rest of the county, because it's just it's not as expensive as the alternative, and it really encourages agency and license to youth in a way that other systems are not able to. So I think that what Together is doing right now, they have a comprehensive plan that I think takes in the needs of the community. And I think that they will set the trend for how this is going to be navigated throughout different areas of the county.
And if I may add to that, each community is different. So the program, just as each person is different, each person will receive attention according to their needs and that support. There's no cookie cutter for this, which is why we're working with intention, and that does take time. We're working through it as a community, and patience is very much appreciated during the process. There's another question here from Michael Dennis. Is there a component that deals with sealing or expunging criminal records?
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yes, please.
I don't know that there's an official component, but there needs to be. In my social work business, I did a lot of this in all the counties across Washington state. And, I think that these things will not sort of organically come out of good intakes with students, those issues. And yours is a good question, Michael. It's layered in the law. So there probably needs to be a pretty good family law attorney rotating around this in some way to handle those things, or a case manager who understands that they can wade into it. Especially the process is pretty simple once you go into it, but it feels daunting. But it's one of those things to make sure that we're mitigating some of the situations that youth get into. They have to be able to be resourced enough to go and eliminate some of those barriers. So that's a great question.
So I'm going to share the PowerPoint because some of the questions are leading to the PowerPoint and they'll better explain to, we'll be able to use them as, let's see. Make sure that I'm coming down. Can everybody see the screen? Okay, gonna trying to, there it is. I don't know that I can see my questions anymore on my screen through the Zoom. But there
I can recall a couple of the questions, Gabby.
Okay.
Someone asked a question about LGBTQIA, and I think that you can probably answer that question about your commitment to that, right?
I can. So with regard to LGBTQ plus students, we are working diligently with community partners to create and not necessarily create, but leverage the expertise, what they bring to the community when educating our host home volunteers and even our staff. We want to make sure that from the foundation through every component of service, we're able to meet the needs of youth with competence and confidence. LGBTQ plus youth are at least 30 to 40% of the population or within the population that we will be supporting as this program rolls out. So it is going to be important. And if you have anything else to add to that, Kim, please do.
Yeah, I would just say that I think that, you know, for everything that in communicating with the staff together, they have a really, you know, the commitment that has to be there to that population. I know in Mason County, probably about 69% of the youth that I have in my program identify as that. And so I have followed hiring practices in my staff to try to have folks available and volunteers that meet those standards. And it's just an absolute bottom line for us to make sure that we are engaging in educating and protecting the youth we serve. And that means protecting that population for sure. And that means that having that as a value, an open value that is going to be acknowledged and respected is something that we do. And I certainly have heard that echoed from you all. So, you know, as a foundational part of what you're doing, which gets into the whole, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion part of the conversation, which clearly together has been going at as so impactfully and intentfully. So it just underlines what you're already doing in the community anyway.
And I want to say that there was a question in the chat from Mike Jones about next steps. What are next steps? Mike, would you care to just maybe expand on that question? And I can't see if Mike is still in the room.
I am. There we go. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gabby, I know some of the things we've been talking about. I just was wondering if you could share what you thought what would be the most help that we could provide you.
Staying informed.
Okay.
We will be providing information through various sources, social media, email shares, and disseminate, share, champion this effort, because as Kim mentioned, we're planting seeds. This is going to be a garden, a community garden, and it does require everybody to step in. It's however they can to support. Again, we are still in the planning component, but here shortly, a lot of information will be coming out, and just keeping in the know and asking. I mean, I'll be sharing my information, please, at any time. No question is a silly question. If anything, those conversations prompt something else to look into and continue, right? So again, just keep informed. And if you have a skill or a talent you want to share with us, we're accepting anybody at the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to share this slide because it shares a little bit of a summary of what we're up to. By January 2022, we're looking at starting to house 30 to 40 students. Clearly, we're not going to be housing them all at the same time. It'll happen throughout the year, but we're going to be starting by January. The McKinney-Vento liaisons at the North Thurston School District and Tumwater School District shared this little bit of data with us. And currently there are 52 identified students in North Thurston and 30 identified unaccompanied high school students in Tumwater. And you can assess that by the time we go back to a regular school schedule, hopefully this fall, anything can happen, obviously, we may learn that more youth are identified. And now with regards to the process, I know that that's been somewhat touched on during this conversation, but as you can see on this slide, there's going to be point of the coordinated entry through CYS, the community youth services, school referrals, community partners will be also making referrals to us. And students will have that option too, to make a self-referral if they're interested in the program. This is volunteer, it's voluntary. It's not court ordered. It can't be pushed on anyone. We will be working with family, parents, guardians, if available, for that point of entry, and the host home will be volunteer too. This model isn't for everybody, and we respect that. It's not, I mean, youth at the end of the day will have that choice, and we will respect and look for other options as available in the community. Again, we're looking to make solid partnerships and make this a good experience for the young person, because this program is meant for the young people in our community. I don't know if anybody else has any questions, because we're coming close to that time where we're going to be ending our conversation this evening.
Gabby, I'm just curious to ask Mitch and the other person, Lance, what are they looking for in a host family? What would make, why would they find, like, what's a good fit for them or for the youth?
That was a question for me. I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, man, thinking back, somebody that accepts that life is not easy. Somebody that accepts that others have it for some reason, still unknown to me. There's just some people out there that life's just a little bit harder than the average human being. I can say from personal experience, I know a lot of people that not to, like, this is not me tooting my own horn by any means, but I don't think there's a lot of people out there that could go through the stuff that I've been through. And so I think the most important part of it is just somebody that is understanding and accepting of any situation, because there's so many. I mean, there's just hearing you guys talk about the number of identified youth that are considered homeless in Thurston and Mason County. I can guarantee you, speaking from personal experience, you guys haven't even touched the fraction of the actual homeless youth. And that's no joke, because when I was homeless, at 17, 18 years old, I had a group of kids that I was helping take care of that sometimes was up in the 30s to 40s, and that was just in one city in Pierce County. It was Puyallup, Washington, is where I was homeless at, and where I did all my dirt at. But I mean, we literally had a solid group of like 20 to 30 kids that were in some way, shape, or form homeless for many, many, many different reasons, from all different parts of life. Kids that are, I mean, we had kids that were 10 to 11 years old, all the way up to 19, 20 years old, and everything in between. So mainly just acceptance is a huge thing. Being willing to I don't want to say it like put up with anything, but in a way, I mean, just accept anything that could come up, because you never know. There's so many different walks of life. So yeah, that's my input on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I guess what I'm wondering about is that trust issue. So I was a middle school teacher, Mitch, you didn't know that. And it's a trust factor with the kids, and several of my students were homeless. And once they trust you, they would open up, but
Yep.
before they trust you, it was hard. And so how do you build that trust factor in with that family that, and I don't know the process between connecting the student with the family, and I'm sure Kim and Gabby know that much better than I do, but people ask me, I want to become a host family, but I don't know. I'm nervous, I'm scared, I don't know how to do that.
I would say, in my opinion on that one, the best answer would be to just be transparent with the people that are wanting to house these students. Just kind of preparing, like getting them prepared for any sort of possibility that might come up, and letting them know that you're stepping into somebody's life, and you're changing their life by giving them this opportunity. And so, if they're on the fence, and I always say keep it real with them. If you keep it real with them and they end up not going for it, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that just saves a student from going into a home where that family wouldn't have accepted them and wouldn't have worked with them on that basis. So I would say, transparency would definitely be the best answer in that one for me.
Thank you. And Landon, I apologize for missing your name before. What were you looking for in a host family?
Yo, Mitch couldn't have said it any better, because like
Okay.
there are so many branches that everybody takes and you don't know what you're gonna get. So just to have somebody who can be very, very understanding and who will listen. Like we don't need judgmental looks around or any actions like that. We need some people who can take us in with open arms.
Because I know a lot of people I've talked to have had exchange students, and they've done it for a year, and I've done several of those for an entire year. And most of them worked out, not all of them, most of them worked out, and the kids, but it was, I don't have the experience with homeless students other than being the teacher to them.
Can I speak for a minute, just kind of what you're saying really quickly, Mike? I mean,
Yeah.
I was having this discussion earlier with Gabby. The success of this program is really hinged in this idea that lots of times youth that do not have homes are forced into making adult decisions in the middle of a development that is not an adult development. And so what happens is, and in Mitch's case, Mitch is a classic example of that. So he had to make a lot of hard decisions to survive. So by the time he got to a host program, the demand is that he have a host family that can not try to put their boot on his neck, because he's already making adult decisions, and he's not doing them perfectly because he's still a child. And so there's this balance that gets out of whack in development when students are forced into, or youth are forced into homelessness. And you have to acknowledge that, though, when you host them. There has to be a certain amount of, again, agency, respect, communication about that lived experience to have good outcomes. And if you approach it just purely from a parental role, it will get blown up, because these students are already making these decisions.
Oh, thank you.
And so
that does make a lot of sense.
yeah.
I guess I wonder more about the process, and I mean, I struggle with patience, and I appreciate everything Gabby and Together is doing, but I also know we have homeless kids today. But
Yeah.
I understand, and I'm very patient. I'm trying to be patient. Yeah, but I'd be curious to see what the steps are. I can picture, like, here's Mitch, here's Landon, here's the family, and you're an instant family. I don't think that happens, but there's got to be a process. But in the meantime, Mitch is couch surfing or getting by. He needs a house, and it's just. But I appreciate everything Together and Gabby are doing, and remain patient as I can be.
Well, Mike, the thing, I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that you're probably echoing an opinion of a lot of service providers to try to get at the problem in a quantity sort of way really quickly. And so as much as I love that, like, public systemic fixes have tried to do that and they're not really working. That's why these things are, you know?
Right.
So some combination of all of those things that try to eliminate the issue. But I appreciate you saying that, because I think that's a sort of a below the surface experience that folks have and don't want to speak to it. But you're echoing what host families might be feeling, you know? And so all of those things will be covered in training to the families that are providing those services, and all of those supports and explanations about the very detailed way that youth experiencing homelessness have to move through their lives. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of misperceptions out there.
Yeah.
I can go
Thank
on.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike. Very important questions, and it's something that I know our guests this evening want to know. These are questions that are honest, and the thing is, it does take time to be able to develop something that has a strong foundation that will be sustainable long term. And we look forward to continuing working with you and with our other partners. But for the sake of time and honoring everyone's evening, thank you very much for being here this evening with us. And we look forward to continuing these conversations in the near future with more information and updates. In the meantime, if anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly. I can even put you through if you have questions with Kim. We can work something out. But everyone have a great evening. And thank you once again, Mitch, Landon, Kim. Thank you so much for being here.
For having me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank
Kim?
you for having me.
Sorry. Kim,
Thanks,
can you hear
guys.
me?
I
Yes,
can.
I can hear you.
Can you, are you all set for next Thursday's Lacey Rotary meeting to talk to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool.
Are you going to do it by Zoom or by in person? Probably by Zoom, huh?
Well, what's your preference?
Well, we'll be next to Ricardo's restaurant in Lacey, so I can meet you there and kind of get you set up, or Zoom, whichever works for you best.
Listen, I'm good with all the things, but I'm going to take a look at my schedule and see which would work best. I'm not opposed to an in-person meeting, so let me get back to you.
Yeah, we had 40 people with this first meeting we had last week, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get it
We
done.
had we had more on Zoom, so it'll all work out.
I hear that.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks,
Go ahead and
guys.
end the recording.
Okay, ending the recording.